नमस्ते, मैं अश्विन फर्नांडिस, क्यूएस क्वार्टरली सिमंस के क्षेत्रीय निदेशक और क्यूएस आईगेज का सीईओ होने के नाते इस कार्यक्रम में भाग लेने वाले सभी अतिथि लोगों का हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं। आज का यह कार्यक्रम क्यूएस वर्ल्ड यूनिवर्सिटी रैंकिंग्स 2021 एडिशन के भारत लॉन्च इवेंट के लिए आयोजित किया गया है। मुझे बहुत खुशी है कि आज हमारे साथ बहुत गणमान्य व्यक्ति हैं और मैं उनको इस मंच पे स्वागत करना चाहूंगा। पहले हमारे मुख्य अतिथि मानव संसाधन विकास मंत्री श्री रमेश पोखरियाल निशंक जी, आपने अपना मूल्य समय निकाल के इस प्रोग्राम में हमारे साथ अपना संदेश भेजने के लिए बहुत बहुत हम खुश हैं। हमारे विशेष अतिथि का भी हम स्वागत करना चाहेंगे, प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर वीएस चौहान, अध्यक्ष नैक, प्रोफेसर डीपी सिंह, अध्यक्ष यूजीसी, बेन साउटर, सीनियर वाइस प्रेसिडेंट वरिष्ठ उपाध्यक्ष क्यूएस क्वार्टरली सिमंस जो ब्रिटेन से हमारे साथ लाइव है। मैं सभी को धन्यवाद करना चाहूंगा कि उन्होंने अपना इस कार्यक्रम में अपना समय निकाल के यहाँ पे उपस्थित है। आज ये दिन बहुत ऐतिहासिक दिन है। क्यूएस क्वार्टरली सिमंस ने अपनी 17वीं क्यूएस वर्ल्ड यूनिवर्सिटी रैंकिंग्स रिलीज की है और इस संस्करण में विश्व के सबसे श्रेष्ठ विश्वविद्यालयों ने जगह पाया है। भारत देश के 21 विश्वविद्यालयों ने मान्यता पाया गया है। 21 Indian universities, ladies and gentlemen, have made it to this edition of the 2021 QS World University Rankings. मुझे और ज्यादा बोलने के लिए बहुत खुश रहता, लेकिन आज हमारे साथ विशेष अतिथियों से सुनना चाहेंगे। मैं पहले गुजारिश करता हूं कि बेन साउटर, क्यूएस के वरिष्ठ उपाध्यक्ष, अपनी प्रधान भाषण हमारे व्यूअर्स को दे। Over to you, Mr. Ben Sauter, for giving your keynote address to the audience who's waiting for us on YouTube.
Good morning, everyone. At least good morning here in London, where it's bright and early, and we wake up to this eventful day in the QS calendar. Thank you to everybody for attending. To my colleagues and friends who are on the line and are going to contribute to this morning's presentation. The QS World University Rankings. This is the 17th edition of the QS World University Rankings. Sometimes I look at myself and don't feel quite old enough for us to have released 17 editions of this research since it began in 2004. But here we are in 2020, 17 years on from the original initialization of the QS World University Rankings, and they are larger, more influential, and arguably, I would say, more relevant than they have ever been up until this point. And relevance is an interesting dimension to look at, particularly when universities wake up every time the rankings come out and question whether or not they're still important, whether or not they can set them aside. Perhaps particularly those institutions that have dropped a little bit, or in some cases a lot, in any given ranking. So why are they relevant today? Well, they're relevant today because they still form a powerful tool to enhance and enrich prospective student choices around the world. Those choices are becoming more challenging. There are more options. There are more different directions that a young person can go in, more different places that a young person can go. There are new, exciting, and in some cases terrifying challenges that the world has to face, and it needs its universities to rally behind key aspects of research in order to pursue those challenges. The headlines over the last 3 months have not been short of universities around the world contributing meaningfully to the pursuit of testing regimes or the discovery of vaccines for COVID-19, which is a current and very real crisis that influences us all. My personal belief And one of the things that inspires me every day about the work that I do is the rare privilege to work with universities around the world. In my view, and in the belief of QS and in many of our stakeholders and followers and people who watch what we do, universities have a unique position in the world. They have this binary responsibility of educating tomorrow's leaders and furnishing them with the knowledge and values that we need them to have to leave the world in a better place than they find it. At the same time, pushing back the frontiers of human knowledge in order to address some of the critical and in some cases existential challenges that our species and our planet now faces. Nowhere else do we find those two binary responsibilities so closely aligned with one another and working alongside. When we break into our rankings and look at the individual dimensions, and we are always seeking improvements, refinements, and ways to do a better job of what we do. QS subscribes to the philosophy that essentially all models are wrong, but some are useful. We don't stand here every year when the rankings are released and declare it to be the ultimate authority on the quality of universities. We recognize that your institutions are rich, multifaceted, diverse places that cannot be easily distilled into a single number or even a collection of numbers. Nonetheless, we subscribe that the rankings remain useful and relevant. Indicator by indicator, academic reputation speaks to the values and the impact and the influence of a university. It enfolds that aspect in one's own country, but also in the region and the world. What we have identified is that international collaboration is a key influencer, not only in attracting more citations, but also in genuinely resolving and addressing the world's greatest problems. For most universities, that remains a central objective. Universities tend to want to have an impact and to address the world's greatest problems, and not only focus on their local communities. Employer reputation talks to the future of work, and when has it ever been more important to speak about what the future of work is going to look like than in the midst of this current crisis, where many of us are working in distributed fashion from more locations, and the very fabric of work life in countries around the world is being challenged and questioned. It is hard to believe that the same skills, the same rhythms, and the same work environments are going to exist beyond this current crisis than did before. And young graduates need to be prepared. They need to be adaptable, and employers are increasingly concerned that that's the case. Faculty-student ratio has been one of the most widely criticized dimensions of the QS World University Rankings. Some challenge that in a world where online education is becoming increasingly influential, perhaps faculty-student ratio is not so relevant. But I challenge that premise. If you are educating students online, do you not need as many teachers to reach out and provide pastoral care to your students to ensure that they understand and can engage with and get through the work that they need? Is the effort of online education intrinsically less resource intensive than the aim of offline education? I argue, if anything, that the contrary is true. Sure, you can run a lecture to 1,000 people or 10,000 people, but a university education is not about a string of lectures. It's about a string of experiences, and many of those are in smaller groups, and they're fundamentally human and personal in nature. Whether delivered online or offline, an institution needs an adequate number of faculty to properly support its students and undertake its research. Citations per faculty speaks to the research strength of an institution, not only the strength, but the profile of that work and its probability of being picked up by great minds elsewhere and augmented and contributed further to best address humanity's problems. And our international dimensions, whilst they may take on a relatively different shape over the next few years, it feels that now more than ever, we need to lean on those with international experience and cultural understanding to make sure that we best understand our colleagues around the world and are able to continue to have our impact unabated and unaffected in spite of some of the challenges that have faced us in recent months and look to continue to face us for some months to come. So let's talk about India for a moment. That is, after all, the aspect of this particular session with respect to the World University Rankings. I first traveled to India in 1999. It has a deep place in my heart. I came to Chandigarh for a work placement, and I have been back many times since, and very much enjoy the color and the vibrancy of the culture and the world. Indeed, India has left its mark on me, and everywhere I go in the world seems somehow brighter and in sharper contrast, thanks to my experience as a young man coming to India and realizing as much about myself as I did about the world. So we stand here in 2021 with 21 institutions in the top 1,000 in the QS World University Rankings. That's fewer than last year. Additionally, we stand here with I think it's 15 of those 21 institutions having seen a drop in their rankings since the 2020 edition released last summer. Naturally, we see a variety of reactions to that. Some institutions are concerned about the fairness. Some turn their attention to the methodology and question whether or not it is adequately complete or appropriately calibrated to the expectations and missions of Indian institutions. The truth is that it probably is not. We have a system that is designed to say something meaningful and useful about universities around the world. And some Indian institutions fare well in that context, at least by our definition, if not their own, with a number of them featuring in the world's top 200. Yet, it is perhaps the delta rather than the outcome that is the cause for concern. And that in itself is interesting. It has been put across many times when I've been to India and engaged with the market that it is a disadvantage to Indian institutions that we place a significant aspect of our ranking on reputation. Yet, for most of the leading Indian institutions, both their academic and employer reputation exceeds their overall rank. It doesn't drag Indian institutions down, it actually pulls them up in the ranking overall. It's more true to say that our international dimensions have been a challenge for Indian institutions to overcome and address due to balancing the pressures of local demand. And as universities in other parts of the world have seemed able to mobilize and become more effective internationally in terms of attracting students and faculty, India has found that more difficult, with its best and brightest institutions having such high standards at a local level from an academic performance standpoint that it seems difficult to bring in international students without potentially reducing those standards. So that's interesting, isn't it? That despite all of the relatively frequently raised concern that reputation metrics are harming India's performance in rankings, the majority of leading Indian institutions are well reputed, and indeed their standing in those dimensions is typically higher than their overall standing in the ranking. So I would put it to the audience here assembled that the challenge is not so much the methodology. You can disagree with the methodology, you may not like the methodology, that is okay. We can see in the national media that ours is not the only methodology that Indian stakeholders are challenged by, and that is also fine. We welcome that criticism, we would like to engage, and if we can make further improvements to make it more suitable, then we are always willing to listen. However, the delta is the concern. If we take academic reputation and employer reputation and see that the reputation of Indian institutions internationally is sliding in a direction that we would prefer to halt, then we might take a different approach to thinking about what we can learn from these results, even when we wake up on a given morning once a year, and we might describe the specific news that greets our institution as unwelcome. So a gradual reduction in the international reputation of Indian institutions indicates that they have been slow to respond to international engagement, to international partnership, to recognizing their own important position on the world stage, partly because they've had such important priorities to focus on the domestic stage. And one of the things that I think it's important for Indian institutions to think about over the coming years is what they can learn from that and how they can be more active internationally without compromising their domestic expectations. We have seen some universities this year move up, and there should be particular credit perhaps extended to IITG that has moved up in the rankings this year with a small lift in academic reputation, to Pune University that has moved up substantially in this year's ranking, and to OP Jindal Global University that has made significant headway in this year's ranking. Those institutions amongst the group are proving that this is not a systemic trend, that there is not something intrinsically impossible for an Indian institution to stem a particular trend and reverse it. Over the past 2 years, I've been inspired by what I would perceive to be a change in mindset from Indian universities at all levels. The Institutes of Eminence program is just one example of government support identifying institutions that are embracing that change in mindset and seem to be willing to recognize that now is the time to seriously reevaluate the role of Indian institutes in the world and drive hard to ensure that India takes its rightful place amongst the world's elite for its leading institutions. And that is an important realization. But as they say, Rome was not built in a day. And trends that have been built over a number of years will take a little bit of time to reverse. We're seeing positive signs. We're having much richer and more engaging conversation with Indian institutions. I'm sure many of the other halves of those conversations are on this morning's call. I'd like to thank you all for continuing to provide data and to support our work. And if there is anything that we can do for you to help you better understand these outcomes, or to figure out what else might be important for your institution to consider in pursuing that binary and challenging combination of domestic priorities and international profile, then QS is always here to listen, help, and engage with universities in India. And I hope that the global crisis passes soon and enables me to come out personally and greet and engage with some of you in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ben. Ben ने हमारे साथ इतनी अच्छी बातें कही, इतनी महत्वपूर्ण बातें की हैं पूरे देश को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए। तो उसको बहुत खुश हूँ मैं कि और खुशगुजार हूँ कि उसने इतनी इम्पोर्टेंट बातें इंडिया और भारत को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए कही हैं। अब मैं निवेदन करना चाहता हूँ प्रोफेसर डीपी सिंह से, जो अध्यक्ष है यूजीसी के, जो अपनी बात हमें कहें, हमारे व्यूअर्स को कहें। प्लीज ओवर टू यू प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर डीपी सिंह।
नमस्कार। हमारे मानव संसाधन विकास मंत्री श्रद्धेय डॉक्टर रमेश पोखरियाल जी निशंक, ऑनरेबल चेयरमैन पीसी नैक प्रोफेसर वीएस चौहान जी, ऑनरेबल सीनियर वाइस प्रेसिडेंट क्यूएस मिस्टर Ben Sauter, Dr. Ashwin Fernandes, Regional Director South Asia QS, all the Honorable Vice Chancellors, Honorable Directors of Indian higher education institutions, friends from academia. सबसे पहले तो मैं अब इस महत्वपूर्ण कार्यक्रम में अपने माननीय मानव संसाधन विकास मंत्री जी का अभिनंदन करता हूं और उन्हें बधाई देता हूं कि उनके कुशल नेतृत्व में लगभग 1 वर्ष पूरा हुआ है उनको मानव संसाधन विकास मंत्री के रूप में, और उनके कुशल नेतृत्व में, उनके मार्गदर्शन में बहुत ही सफलता के साथ MHRD ने बहुत सी नई स्कीम्स लागू की, नई गतिविधियाँ शुरू की और UGC ने भी बहुत सी एक्टिविटी शुरू की। और हम देख रहे हैं कि किस तरह से हमारे जो हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं वो गुणवत्ता में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, और इसके लिए मैं उनके कुशल नेतृत्व को बधाई देता हूँ। Friends, it is heartening to note the presence of 21, which seems to be a good number, Indian higher education institutions in this year's QS World Rankings 2021, with 3 in the top 200 of the world, with 1 new entrant in the top 1000. My heartiest congratulations to all the institutions and the universities. We are aware, friends, that participation in the rankings and attaining ranks in globally acceptable rankings provide an opportunity to the HEIs to measure its outcomes and impact created through outcomes with those of other HEIs, and then put up a continuous quality improvement mechanism for attaining higher ranks in every cycle in a globally competitive environment. My request to all the highly placed institutions to become change leaders for promoting quality education by mentoring other HEIs, initiating interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary researches, promoting value-based and eco-friendly campuses, and make effective use of technology. During and after COVID-19 pandemic, the number of Indian students moving outside India for education would reduce drastically. And considering this, you have suitable strategies for admitting such bright minds, such learners. We expect you to ensure that the graduates of your university or institutions in the present era of globalization, with anyone, anytime, anywhere scenario, and ever increasing competitiveness, are competent in core areas of learning, understand interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary disciplines, aligned with the core discipline, and are lifelong learners. Friends, UGC in recent past has focused on quality improvement of higher education systems in the country. We need to assure that every student who is a part of higher education system shall have a minimum acceptable standard of education. UGC has notified quality mandate with the objectives to improve the graduate outcomes, to promote students linked with the society and industry, to train students in professional and soft skills, and all higher education institutions to obtain NAAC accreditation by 2022. I'm also happy to share with you all that recently, and that too particularly in the last 1 year, जो कि हमारे माननीय मंत्री जी का कार्यकाल रहा है, उस दौरान UGC has taken several initiatives such as faculty induction program with the name of Gurudakshata, development of student induction program, Diksharam, learning outcome-based curriculum framework, examination reforms, developing curriculum on life skills with the name of Jeevan Kaushal, then also framework for eco-friendly and sustainable campuses, Satat, guidelines for inculcation of values and professional ethics, Mulya Prabha, Paramarsh a scheme for mentoring of HEIs for NAC accreditation by the best performing institutions, and also launch of a research scheme Stride, etc. UGC has been taking initiatives from time to time to promote use of technology in higher education, with launch of many MOOCs, e-courses on SWAYAM platform, permitting 20% courses in a program offered through full-fledged online mode and offering of open and distance learning programs and online programs. In India, government has taken many initiatives to minimize the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And also various efforts are being taken on continuous basis to find domain-specific intermittent solutions with focus of long-term solutions. Under the dynamic leadership of our Honorable Minister Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal Ji Nishank, the MHRD, UGC, and other educational organizations are taking number of measures to mitigate the impact of disruption on education with the help of technology. The most important component of education in this COVID-19 pandemic is the technology-assisted education to the extent feasible. The conventional mode of education has been adequately supported by the ODL and online learning, in which the learners, the teachers, the counselors, the mentors are at a distance. Online education has embarked upon a newer way of learning to facilitate the learners anywhere and at any time. Some of the reforms which are being worked on to enhance permissive online component in conventional universities and ODL programs from present 20% to 40%, to liberalize distance and online education related regulatory framework, capacity building programs for the faculty members on online education, and to integrate ODL and online regulations. Friends, we also need to promote and support blended education. That means online education with face-to-face teaching, learning, which is going to be a new normal now. I look forward to your active contribution in this endeavor. Friends, in fact, we look up to you as exemplary institutions, as pace-setting and lead institutions, as mentor institutions for other higher education institutions to emulate. इसी के साथ ही मैं जिन हमारे विश्वविद्यालयों को और संस्थाओं को इस QS वर्ल्ड यूनिवर्सिटी रैंकिंग 2021 में सम्मानपूर्वक स्थान मिला है, ऐसी सब संस्थाओं को, ऐसे सभी विश्वविद्यालयों को मैं हार्दिक बधाई देता हूं और उनके उज्जवल संस्थागत भविष्य के लिए शुभकामनाएं भी देता हूं। और मैं ये भी आशा करता हूं कि भविष्य में और अधिक विश्वविद्यालय और संस्थान इस वर्ल्ड रैंकिंग्स में आएंगे और हमारे माननीय मंत्री जी का उद्बोधन अभी हमें सुनने को मिलेगा, उनका मार्गदर्शन सुनने को मिलेगा। मैं पुनः ये दोहराना चाहता हूं कि माननीय मानव संसाधन विकास मंत्री जी के कुशल नेतृत्व में पूरे देश भर में बहुत प्रोएक्टिवली बहुत सी गतिविधियां हो रही हैं। उनके अच्छे परिणाम हमें दिखाई दे रहे हैं। हमारे संस्थान गुणवत्ता में, क्वालिटी में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और हम एक्सीलेंस में, रिसर्च में, इनोवेशन में नई ऊंचाइयां छू रहे हैं। इसके लिए मैं सभी शैक्षिक जगत की ओर से माननीय मंत्री जी का अभिनंदन करता हूं। मुझे खुशी है बैन सॉटर ने जो कुछ इनिशियल रिमार्क्स में अपने कहा और जो कुछ अपेक्षाएं हमारे जो इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूशंस उनसे की हैं, और इसके साथ ही मैं देख रहा हूं कि प्रोफेसर चौहान साहब जो कि बहुत अनुभवी हैं पूरा ग्लोबल पर्सपेक्टिव को लेते हुए साथ में, एंड ही इज ऑलवेज कॉन्शियस अबाउट द क्वालिटी, एक्सीलेंस एंड गुड पब्लिकेशंस एटसेट्रा। ही इज आल्सो देयर, वी वुड बी लिसनिंग टू हिम। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं यूएस को अच्छे आयोजन के लिए बधाई देता हूं और भी सभी संस्थाओं को बहुत हार्दिक बधाई, धन्यवाद, जय हिंद।
बहुत धन्यवाद प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर सिंह. Thank you so much for your speech and for enlightening our audience today. For those joining us on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel, and we will be coming up with more content very soon. अभी मैं प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर वीरेंद्र चौहान से निवेदन करता हूं कि वो अपनी बात हमारे व्यूअर्स से कहें. प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर वीएस चौहान, वीरेंद्र चौहान, over to you, sir.
माननीय मिनिस्टर एचआरडी, मुझे आपकी पहली बात से ऐसे लगा शायद वो इस वक्त नहीं आ पाएंगे, मगर उन्होंने मैसेज भेजा है. अगर वो है बात सर, तो मुझे इसका बड़ा दुख है, क्योंकि उनको सुनने में मुझे तो बड़ा आनंद आता है. वो बहुत स्पष्ट बोलते हैं और बहुत ही सटीक बोलते हैं. एनीवे, उनकी मैसेज आप पढ़िएगा तो वो ही ठीक है. मैं 2-3 चीज़ कहना चाहता हूँ रैंकिंग के बारे में. इसमें जो कुछ मेरे विचार हैं वो कई बार ऐसे लगते हैं जैसे कि रैंकिंग सिस्टम को ही क्रिटिसाइज कर रहा हूँ मैं. तो वो नहीं है, ये मेरे अपने एक्सपीरियंस की बात है. क्योंकि जब हम बड़े हुए तो इंडिया में एजुकेशन सिस्टम जैसा था वैसा था. मैं तो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में पढ़ा, उसके बाद में मैं बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटी में गया, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में. और हम लोगों को, मैं सोचता हूँ हम लोगों को बहुत अच्छी एजुकेशन मिली तब. तो जो भी मैं सोचता हूँ, जो मैं आपके सामने आज कुछ बोल पा रहा हूँ, कह पा रहा हूँ, ये मेरी स्कूल और एजुकेशन जो कि सारी देश में हुई, वो उसी का नतीजा है. उसके बाद में जब मैं एक स्कॉलरशिप लेके ऑक्सफोर्ड गया, तो मैं इसलिए रेलिवेंट इसको समझता हूँ, तो वहाँ पे 2-4 अखबार तब रैंकिंग किया करते थे. तो सब लोग साल में बहुत गार्डियन रैंकिंग आ रही है, टाइम्स रैंकिंग आ रही है, जैसे घर में एक छोटा सा पार्टी होता है वैसे लगता था. बाकी कॉलेजेस ऑक्सफोर्ड के और कैम्ब्रिज के छोड़ के कहीं रैंकिंग हो के हमने तो नहीं सुनी थी, और ना ही कोई आईवी लीग को रैंक करता था. तो ये जो लोग नए सुन रहे हैं, जो बच्चा लोग सुन रहे हैं, या जो नई फैकल्टी सुन रही है, ये रैंकिंग इंटरनेट की देन है. इंटरनेट जब हुआ तो उसके बड़े फायदे हैं, और फायदे बेन ने काफ़ी अच्छी तरह से बोले हैं. और मैं इसको नुकसान तो नहीं कहूँगा, बट इनके अपने कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज भी हैं. एंड सम ऑफ दोस कॉन्सिक्वेंसेज वी हैव टू डील विद कंटिन्यूअसली, एंड स्पेशली इन अ कंट्री which has seen very small education system of 20 university to grow to a system of almost 1,000 university and still counting. And from what I see in the government, if our GER were to go from 26 to 27 to 50, which we very much would like to do, so you'll see how what entropy the system would cause. तो मुझे रैंकिंग पर से कोई बहुत ज़्यादा लगाव नहीं है. पर मैं सोचता हूँ रैंकिंग आने के फायदे बहुत हैं, और मैं 2 फायदे बोलना चाहूँगा. और ये इंटरनेट की देन है, उसको मैं यूँ बोलना चाहता हूँ कि जो पैरामीटर्स हैं, अब वो इंडिया में मोर और लेस एक्सेप्टेड है कि देयर आर इंटरनेशनल क्वालिटी बेंचमार्क. इसका सबसे बड़ा फायदा मैं सोचता हूँ हम लोगों को ये हुआ कि धीरे धीरे नैक में, NIRF में, थ्रू QS रैंकिंग, शंघाई रैंकिंग, टाइम्स रैंकिंग, और many other rankings, the awareness of international standard homogeneous quality benchmark itself, I think, is a very big achievement. उसके तहत ये होता है कि जब आप इंटरनेशनल बेंचमार्क है और लार्जली इसको आपको एक्सेस करना है इंटरनेट से या डिजिटल मोड से, तो उसका भी अपना डिसिप्लिन है, उसका अपना सिस्टम है. और वो मुझे बड़ी खुशी होती है, क्योंकि हम लोग नैक में, मैं और प्रोफेसर DP सिंह दोनों इन्वॉल्व थे इसको ओवरऑल करने के लिए. वो रियलाइजेशन बिल्कुल फर्म हो गया है इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटी में. तो मैं सोचता जो रैंकिंग ने और एक दूसरे से कंपटीशन की स्पर्धा ने जो किया है, ये इसकी बड़ी पॉजिटिव आउटकम है. Have we come to a level where we think everybody have a level playing ground? I am not so sure. I think I'll leave everybody else to judge. But where Ben left, I want to just come in for 2 minutes. So what Ben said, that if you have an online education and the the parameter of faculty versus student ratio, then the experience of being in a university, physically in a university is very different, etc., etc. मेरा अपना विचार ये है, more I think going to go down. Actually, it should not go down. Because उसमें और भी discipline चाहिए, दोनों का, पढ़ने वाले का भी और पढ़ाने वाले का भी, तो वो major issue. But when the sense of success in university best were completely disrupted when the way education started expanding through the internet, just the knowledge itself. So one might appreciate that it has made a lot of information available, but settled way of a university, which 200-year-old university producing research. University then, everybody started looking at university as an icon, national pride, a space that will produce people who will immediately walk into jobs, they will look after industry, they will remove all the ills of society. So just suddenly university came under tremendous pressure, all university system. Layer that with the expectation of everybody wanting to go to university.
I think we lost Professor Chauhan.
Can you hear me, Ashwin?
Yes, we can hear you now. We lost you for a moment. We can hear you. It says your bandwidth is low. So you can continue. We can see you and hear you now.
So actually, Ben did say that the Indian university reputations doesn't really reflect the ranking. I would say this: I look after 3-4 scholarships for past almost 40 years, non-stop, and I see about 4,000 to 5,000 kids coming out from Indian university, and let's say top 30, 40 universities. I wonder if any ranking system would put into place a parameter whereby universities may not be ranked in very high in their ranking, but the students that graduate from our university find admission in the top 50 university in the world. If that number, if it can be semi-quantitatively or somewhere can be put in. So the number of students who get not only admission in Harvard or Cambridge or Oxford or Imperial or UCL or whatever, the quality of work they end up doing there on the strength of the education they've received in India, which is Indian schools, Indian university. I somehow think sometime at the cost of education in India, the amount of money spent, let's say in IIT on a single undergraduate versus money that gets spent on, let's say, in top 50 university in QS ranking. And we've discussed this, Raj, myself, you, all of us have discussed. I think some of the ranking systems will look totally inverted if these parameters somewhere show up. Final point on this, that in India we are very much in the development stage. We have accepted lots of changes very, very fast, and I'll come to that in a minute. We must not forget that we are in a country where there's a tremendous social responsibility dimension to higher education. Must not forget there's a big responsibility, constitutional responsibility on Indian institutions. So in that sense, we are in a very rapidly evolving situation. I don't want to self-pat and go amazingly well. Given the circumstances from where we were to where we are. Need is now to consolidate, need is now to introspect, and need is now to, all right, let's compete internationally. I think we've come to a stage where we are familiar with the parameters, etc., etc. We don't need to game them. We just need to make sure. My personal belief is if universities get better vis-a-vis what we give it to students, vis-a-vis what's quality of faculty is being hired, vis-a-vis what courses we teach, I don't think we will ever actually need to look at rankings where we are. That will be natural consequence, absolute natural consequence. And those universities in India are looking after a quality of leadership, governance. You just take care of that. Your ranking and ignore ranking. I mean, Germans didn't care for ranking for a very long time and didn't do any harm to German education system. Some universities going up and going down, I don't think we should worry too much personally, because we know that Russia, the Israel, and a lot of people have woken up to the so-called systems of ranking. So that's fine. I mean, it's like running a race in Olympics. They have international competition. What the last couple of 2, 3, 4 minutes that I want to spend is very rapidly the changes the governments, successive government, especially present government, has brought in. And fortunately, I've been involved with many of these reforms in the assessment and accreditation. Overnight, they are changed, they are largely accepted. NIRF. So, since it's not because we didn't make it international, is the idea of ranking itself had to be seeped into the country. And I dare say, I think NIRF, the government initiative, has done extremely well. It's running very well. A lot of people are enthusiastic, and naturally from there we'll flow into the how do we handle the international ranking. Should that be our focus? Personally, I'm not too worried about that. Then the funding mechanism in India, past 4 or 5 years, and I must say right up front that when you are changing or restructuring funding patterns, you don't see results next day. You don't see results next month. You won't see results next year. You may not even see results for next 5 years. So instruments like higher education funding agencies, uh, the breaking the walls between competitive funding of so-called private university versus government, publicly funded universities. These are fundamental changes. These are changes we never thought we'd be able to make. The results of this will take some time. IOE, which is a tremendous initiative from the government, institution of eminence. The idea is, of course, you can say that we should be higher ranked here, there, but idea is to raise the internal standards of faculty, mostly research infrastructure in these. So this is a very recent happening, and I think a lot of institutions are going to benefit. And lastly, the I hope that happens very soon, and I wish the minister आप वहाँ होते तो उन्होंने पिछली बार इंटरेक्शन में अभी 2 हफ्ता पहले कहा था fundamental changes that you will see or should see is the new education policy. New education policy has been debated, it has been re-looked at, it has been functional. Now we are just waiting for new education policy, and through that mechanism for new education policy, if you look at very carefully, is actually largely speaks about colleges and universities. Our research infrastructure itself might have to change because we still work with the old model, and this is not the time to discuss that. But universities need huge strengthening. And then something like National Foundation. I cannot see many more not making up, but I'm absolutely sure that our accessing higher education itself is a challenge right now. And if I'm sitting with Professor DP Singh and with the minister, we have the large issue of bringing quality at the same time have to expanding our system. We're painfully aware of the fact that these two have to be taken care together. So I just want to conclude by saying that I've been watching Indian higher education for a long time, from only 1 lakh student to 3.6 crore enrollment student, which might go up to 6 crore in very soon time to come. 50% of all enrollment in Indian university, almost 50% all women. I think these are huge celebratory points of Indian higher education. And from where we are, and the new initiatives of the government, like I explained to you, new education policy, National Science Funding Agency, HIFA, UGC has come out with huge reform, is only, to me, I see very bright future. Just one point which I forgot, if I may say, Ashwin, if I have a minute. One of the natural consequences, and that has worried us, of the so-called ranking and race for ranking was disturbance in the publishing world. Publishing world was hugely unsettled because the pressure on the university to publish more, to have more citation, and all sorts of things and business interests moved into that direction, and naturally forced some of us to take view of where are the fraud journals, where are the bad journals coming from, are people publishing, is the plagiarizing happening. So I'm not saying it is because of that, but this is something which we had to face. We are actually confronted with this problem as you and I speak. The where should you publish, how do you know this journal is good enough, the UGC journals. So, but positive, negatives apart, tensions apart, problems of Indian higher education apart, I see, to be honest, very bright future of Indian higher education. And with the kind of leadership now is in place, as I said, I'm sorry that Minister himself may not be talking to us directly, but I think there's a lot to look forward to. Thank you.
थैंक यू, बहुत धन्यवाद प्रोफेसर चौहान। जो आपने सवाल किए हैं बेन साउटर से, वो हम Q&A सेक्शन में बेन से गुजारिश करेंगे कि वो रिस्पॉन्ड करे. Some of the questions which Professor Chauhan has posed, will allow Ben to respond to them during the Q&A time. So now the time has come for us to hear to the message from the Honorable Minister of Human Resource Development. हम बहुत उत्सुक हैं मंत्री जी की स्पीच और संदेश सुनने के लिए. तो चलते हैं मिनिस्टर जी की स्पीच जो प्री रिकॉर्डेड है इस आयोजन के लिए, वो हम अभी देखते और सुनते हैं.
क्यूएस वर्ल्ड यूनिवर्सिटी रैंकिंग 2021 की उद्घोषणा और अनावरण के इस कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित होकर मुझे खुशी हो रही है. इस कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित सभी अतिथियों का मैं अभिनंदन कर रहा हूं और उन संस्थाओं को जो अपने शीर्ष को छू सकी हैं, उन्हीं सभी उन विश्व की श्रेष्ठ संस्थाओं को भी मैं शुभकामनाएं देना चाहता हूं. मुझे खुशी है कि मेरे देश में, भारत में अभी कुछ वर्षों तक 200 के अंदर हमारी कोई संस्थाएं स्थान नहीं ले पाती थी, लेकिन मुझे ये कहते हुए गौरव और खुशी है कि अभी 200 के अंदर हमारी 3 संस्थाएं हैं और विश्व की फलक पर हमारे 21 विश्वविद्यालयों ने अपना स्थान बनाया है. अब हिंदुस्तान का जो ये शैक्षणिक वातावरण है वो तेज़ी से और आगे बढ़ रहा है. मुझे भरोसा है कि आने वाले वक्त में जहाँ हमारे 1000 से भी अधिक विश्वविद्यालय हैं, 45,000 से अधिक डिग्री कॉलेज हैं, ये 1000 से अधिक विश्वविद्यालय और 45,000 से अधिक जो डिग्री कॉलेज हैं, ये हिंदुस्तान का सबसे बड़ा शैक्षणिक तंत्र है. ये लगातार प्रतिस्पर्धा में आगे आएंगे और जिस तरीके से हमने स्टडी इन इंडिया शुरू किया है, जिस तरीके से अभी हमने स्पार्क के तहत दुनिया के शीर्ष 127 विश्वविद्यालयों के साथ अनुसंधान और शोध करना शुरू किया है, स्ट्राइड के तहत अंतर विषय शोध शुरू किए हैं, इम्प्रिंट और इम्प्रेस के तहत लगातार हमारे छात्र आगे बढ़ रहे हैं और अब विश्व के लगभग आसियान देशों के 1000 से भी अधिक छात्र आज हमारे IITs में अनुसंधान के लिए यहाँ भारत आ रहे हैं, जिनके साथ हमारा MOU हो गया है। तो जिस तरीके से ज्ञान और ज्ञान प्लस करके हम लोगों ने अभी ये कार्यक्रम शुरू किया, मुझे भरोसा है कि हमारे ये संस्थान अवेयरनेस कोशिश कर रहे हैं और निश्चित रूप में हम विश्व की इस रैंकिंग में अपना और तेज़ी से स्थान बढ़ाएंगे, बनाएंगे। और मैं सभी उन संस्थाओं को जिन्होंने अपना स्थान बनाया है मैं बधाई देना चाहता हूं। और हमारे भारत के जो 21 विश्वविद्यालय जो दुनिया की शीर्ष विश्वविद्यालयों में जिन्होंने अपना स्थान बनाया और 200 के अंदर आने वाली 3 जो हमारी संस्थाएं हैं उनको भी मैं बहुत सारी बधाई देना चाहता हूं। मेरी शुभकामना।
अब बहुत धन्यवाद मंत्री जी। मैं बहुत खुश हूं कि आपने आपका संदेश हम तक पहुंचाया है। और अब जो समय था सर्टिफिकेट्स का प्रदर्शन करने के लिए वो अभी समय है, तो तुरंत हम शुरू करेंगे। We'll now start with the presentation ceremony of the certificates, which we'll do very quickly. And we have 21 Indian institutes in this ranking edition, and we will start with the certificate ceremony immediately, and we will showcase those institutions. So the first in the first क्षमा चाहता हूं, थोड़ी तकनीकी कारणों से हम ये 1-2 सेकंड और लेंगे। 800 और 1000 के बीच में पहली जो संस्थान है यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ कैलकाटा, जो पहली इंस्टीट्यूट है। दूसरी 801 और 1000 के बीच में बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी, अन्ना यूनिवर्सिटी, अमृता विश्व विद्यापीठम, अलीगढ़ मुस्लिम यूनिवर्सिटी, मणिपाल 751 से 800 के बीच 751 to 800 मणिपाल एकेडमी ऑफ हायर एजुकेशन, और जामिया मिलिया इस्लामिया न्यू दिल्ली 651 से 700 के बीच यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ हैदराबाद, सावित्रीबाई फुले पुणे यूनिवर्सिटी जिन्होंने ओवर 100 प्लेसेस ऊपर गए हैं और इट इज वन ऑफ द फास्टेस्ट मूविंग पब्लिक यूनिवर्सिटीज। ओपी जिंदल ग्लोबल यूनिवर्सिटी 651 to 700. They are also the fastest rising private institution and the #1 private institution in this edition of the ranking. Jadavpur University as well, 651 to 700. The next band we have is the 601 to 650, and we have IIT Hyderabad, which is a new entrant in this ranking, followed by in the 501 to 510 range, we have University of Delhi. In the next, in the top 500, ladies and gentlemen, we have IIT Guwahati at 470, followed by IIT Roorkee at 383, followed by IIT Kanpur at 350, followed by IIT Kharagpur at 314, followed by IIT Madras at 275. And in the top 200, ladies and gentlemen, we have Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi at 193, the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore at 185. And the top Indian Institute this year, ladies and gentlemen, the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, the #1 institute in India, and the #1 public institute as well. Congratulations to all the participants of the ranked institutions this year. And thank you so much for joining us. हम बहुत धन्यवाद जो सब लोग हमारे साथ यहाँ पे आए हैं. और अभी हम लोग Q&A section में जाएंगे, and we'll open up to Q&A, and we have with us a few directors and vice chancellors of Indian institutes who are joining us on Zoom. But I would like to request Ben Sauter to come online first, and he probably could answer or respond to Professor Chauhan's question, and then whoever are joining us, the directors can send a message, and we'll get you live on video and audio to make your statement. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Ashwin, Dr. Chauhan, Dr. Singh. It's been a pleasure to be with you this morning. And a lot of excellent questions and observations have been raised through my colleagues' prior interventions. I will respond to a few of them. The reality is, and this was raised by Dr. Singh, as best as I could tell, trying to bridge between languages. My Hindi is a little hazy. But one thing that was mentioned was the environmental implications and responsibilities of universities, which is something that is increasingly being looked at, not by rankers specifically, but by young people who are considering what institution to go to. We're actively looking into whether or not we can build filters around our rankings that enable enable stakeholders to come onto the ranking and filter and sort our overall rankings by additional dimensions that we may not have for all 1,000 universities, but when you run a filter, we can filter out those that don't supply the data and begin to gather additional intelligence to fuel that elevated interest in such things from young people, and hopefully in return encourage institutions to take them continually seriously. So there are definitely things within and around the rankings that we aim to continually evolve and adapt to make them more useful and more valuable to our key stakeholders. The point that was raised by Dr. Chauhan, specifically around tracking the destinations of graduates from Indian universities, and indeed universities in other countries, is well made, and is definitely something that we're interested in. Indeed, in our employability rankings and our business school rankings, we draw on a proprietary data set that we have built, which is all based on alumni outcomes. So in that context, we have gone to lists of famous people, CEOs of large companies, Nobel Prize winners, inventors, TED talkers, LinkedIn influencers, young inventors, young authors, artists, you name it, anybody who has been listed by a third-party organization that is recognizing excellence or prestige at an individual level on a multi-country basis. And we've gone back and tracked where those people did their MBAs and their undergraduates and their bachelors and their masters and their and their PhDs, and aggregated that together to say a little something about what institutions have potentially done for their alumni. And in that context, as I recall, it's been a while since I've looked directly at those numbers. Some of the leading Indian institutions do quite well. There are many graduates of Indian institutions that have gone on to become CEOs and board members of top companies in Silicon Valley, and that indicator picks up those kind of dimensions. In terms of gathering data on the sort of entry to world-leading universities from all over the world, that's quite difficult to do. It requires quite a lot of computing power, quite a lot of participation from the world's leading universities to confirm who's gone where. I think it's an excellent idea, if not as a primary indicator, at least as a companion indicator. It's just challenging to execute, and we haven't been able to have many meaningful conversations that have elevated the feasibility of that analysis yet. But it's definitely an idea that remains in the in the parking lot for when data sets and data into institutions begins to open up more consistently worldwide and enables us to look at those kind of dimensions.
All right, thank you so much, Ben. So we have a few directors. I would like to first ask Professor T.G. Sitaram, the director of IIT Guwahati. We will get you online first, sir, and if you're there, you should be seeing yourself included immediately. So if you can unmute yourself and make a statement or a question to the panel.
Yeah, can you hear me?
With lots of echo.
Hello. There is a lot of echo.
Yes, there is. So maybe there is another sound in your background. Or do you want me to read out your question out, Mr. Sitaram?
No, I don't have any question. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the QS for coming up with this ranking. And I would like to also say it's the hard work of our faculty and the research scholars. Why I say that is because if you see the details of what the ranking has been listed, our citation per faculty category, we have improved from 71.2 to 77.9, and the global ranking from 89 to global ranking to 55, which is really very happy news for us. And we are the only IIT in the Northeast, and I'm very happy to see this progress. And also, academic reputation has also increased, so which is a good sign for us. And I do not have any specific question to you, but we would love to do much better than what we have done so far. So we thank for this opportunity to say a few words. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all my faculty, students, and also the MHRD for unstinting support for us, and also the Honorable Minister. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sitaram, who was from the IIT Guwahati. We have another hand raised there, and we'll go over to Dr. Tariq Mansoor. So over to you, Dr. Tariq. We can you have to unmute yourself and make your statement. We don't have a response from Dr. Tariq. We'll go over to Professor C. Rajkumar, the Vice Chancellor, founding Vice Chancellor of OP Jindal Global University. Over to you, Professor Rajkumar.
All right. First of all, I would like to thank QS World University Rankings for continuing to believe in India and the possibility of Indian higher education to rise above its pre-existing potential and to achieve this degree of excellence. I know that ranking organizations face a numerous set of challenges in different countries, including India. So we are very delighted that we have been able to move up nearly 100 ranks this year, but also to be ranked India's first ranked private university. And the reason I say that is that it also gives a lot of hope for a number of institutions which are in the formative stages of their evolution, and that a non-STEM, non-medicine Indian private university to be able to come into top 1,000 and to then move up the rankings in a decade is also an interesting story coming from India. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our regulatory bodies, in particular the UGC, but also other accreditation bodies such as the NAC, and of course the Institute of Eminence, Empowered Experts Committee, because there is tremendous faith that has been deposed on Indian higher education institutions, and to significantly advance the cause of regulatory reforms. As it was mentioned, but it's worth repetition, that the recent efforts to create a new imagination for higher education in India, with the advancement of policies relating to graded autonomy, reform in the accreditation process, providing greater trust and faith in the institutions, including the Institute of Eminence policy. All these things augur well for the future of Indian higher education. I also want to thank the government of Haryana, which been a strong sense of support for us personally, but also the larger ecosystem that is enabled. In particular, I would like to thank our Chancellor and benefactor, Mr. Jindal, but also our Dean, faculty, students, and staff, all of whom have contributed to this effort. Lastly, my question to Ben is that one of the things that is facing India today is that with the large degree of diversity that is prevailing in Indian higher education, with 1,000 universities and 35 to 40,000 colleges, there is a lot of appetite to understand the methodology of rankings and what type of efforts that need to be put by institutions to improve in their rankings. The coming of IIT Hyderabad into the rankings is an example. The rising of the Pune University in the rankings is an example. All these things, and also the emergence of new age private universities such as us and others. So the question to you is, what can you do for Indian higher education to achieve its fullest potential and to have greater reliance on rankings as a benchmark for promoting excellence? Because the reality is, 850 million people in India are less than 35 years of age. And the future of the world is going to significantly depend upon the way Indian higher education is going to influence and impact the future. And hence, it's important for QS to take India more seriously. Lastly, I want to thank our Honorable Minister for his leadership and support and his plain talk. And he remains deeply concerned as to how his office and the HRD ministry can support and indeed, facilitate and enable the universities to achieve higher levels of excellence, also benchmarked through international rankings such as the QS World University Rankings. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Raj, and over to you, Ben, on this one.
Thank you, Raj, and congratulations on your performance in this year's rankings and your continued crusade to illustrate what can be done in a comparatively short period of time with the appropriate mindsets and will to succeed. It's been an impressive journey, and we continue to watch with care and interest. I think the fundamental answer to your question is, let's listen and learn from one another. The reality from my own personal perspective is that for a very long time, coming to India now since 2007 to talk about the rankings, for the first 10 years, let me go back. For the first 5 years of that, it was a battle everywhere we went. It was a challenge. It was dismissed. The world outside India wasn't all that interesting. For public universities, private universities were an inconvenience rather than anything to be taken seriously. For the next 5 years of that, there was a shift. There were universities, certainly the leading private universities, who were embracing ways to illustrate their validity in a changing environment. And there were second-tier public institutions beginning to take measures and metrics a little bit more seriously and figure out how they exist in the world. For the most part, however, the outlook of India's leading institutions, the IITs and others, was still comparatively dismissive of international comparators, benchmark metrics, rankings. It didn't really matter where you looked. As far as they were concerned, there was an institutional attitude that they were the best and everybody should recognize that they were the best. And if anybody suggested that they weren't the best, then that was not a challenge that they welcomed. In the past 2 to 3 years, that has also begun to shift. We've seen greater engagement, greater opportunity to speak to them, to help them better understand why we do what we do, how we do what we do, and most importantly, that we are here to listen and help and adapt and evolve, and that we recognize that we can only do that in dialogue with the institutions that we evaluate. Similarly, in that period, we've also enjoyed a much greater frequency and quality of dialogue with the ministry and various other policy officials, and we're very happy to be able to welcome representatives of esteemed public bodies and to have been able to welcome previous incumbents in key positions of office, both during and after their terms of office at previous events that we've held. So that constant dialogue, we're here, we're ready to engage with Indian higher education at whatever level it's ready to engage with us, and our mode will be one of listening and learning before we identify the specifics of how we might be able to assist and support. In the meantime, one of the things that we have done to recognize that depth, breadth, and diversity of Indian higher education, and recognize that we can't squeeze 40,000 Indian institutions into the world's top 1,000 anytime soon, is to establish a specific rating system targeted and calibrated at Indian institutions, which is the QSI gauge, which Ashwin's operation out of Bangalore operates, and we are enjoying increasing traction and ongoing dialogue with a wide range of different Indian institutions that we feel we have been able to already assist and hope to continue to evolve that standard to assist further. Indeed, in recent months, the team in Bangalore have adapted to specifically look at online readiness and the capability of Indian institutions to pivot to an online mode of learning during the current crisis. And that has been in an attempt to further support a breadth and diversity of Indian institutions, and not only focus on the 20 or so that are able to compete for positions amongst the world's elite.
Thank you so much, Ben. We have a question for order. So we have one question which says, with our AICTE UGC guidelines, and this is coming on our YouTube channel, it says, with our AICTE UGC guidelines on faculty-student ratio, it is very difficult to get a score on the metric, which is a faculty-student ratio in the QS rankings. The second question is, how is India planning to achieve a 1:2 to 1:10 faculty-student ratio from two different people? And yeah, so if either of you all or both of you would like to comment on this, I would like you to say so.
You have to choose who will reply there, but I'll leave it for President Singh to start.
Professor Chauhan can respond to it.
So I can respond to it, whatever comes to mind. You see, okay, this is not a question of what is happening in the university, but we know that there are large number of vacancies in Indian university, including in some of the top ones. And I said it we have to do a whole lot of work internally to our governance, to our, for example, if you fill all the vacant posts, your faculty-student ratio will not all, but mostly take care of it. So there are a lot of, and I don't want to repeat myself. So systems are being put in place vis-a-vis more funding, more support. In fact, I wish Minister was there, because that's what he said in his last interaction. A very large number of faculty positions will be filled in. So I'm just looking at near future. There's no other way of looking at, but is 1:10 is optimal for a country like India? Is 1:15 optimal? Is it 1:20? I don't think I should be guided by a ranking scheme. Rather than we should be guided about what our needs are in the country and what we are able to afford. I keep saying that again and again. We just internally need to be stronger. We know now what are the parameters whereby international, let's say, competition will be played. and do our best. But I still think it will be largely Indian decisions. It won't be guided by ranking agencies.
Dr. Singh, would you like to add on anything to that?
Professor Chauhan has responded to this very well, and I agree to his observations.
Okay, brilliant. I have another question to anyone in the panel here. In India, many universities are affiliating and spend resources in facilitating the affiliating colleges and the college students. It's generally not factored in rankings. And they won't like to have the opinion of anyone in the panel for that.
Yes, I think this is a very genuine observation, and because in India, the number of colleges is very large, and they are affiliated to the particularly to the state university. Even in Delhi University, we have large number of colleges. So if we see as a nation, the contribution of the affiliated colleges in the higher education system, so it should be reflected somewhere. And as we are talking about the perhaps the inclusiveness also should be there, the diversity of the nation and the how we are responding, how we are addressing the issues which are of diverse nation of such a vast country. Then issues related to equality, issues related to access, something which is particularly not only India specific, but also relates to various developing countries also. So maybe, yes, I agree to this, that somewhere it should be reflected.
Okay, brilliant. So we have Dr. Tariq Mansoor, who's come back again, and he would like to make a statement or ask he has a question. So that's the last one we'll take for today because we've overrun time. So there you go, Dr. Tariq. If you can hear us, you can unmute yourself. We still don't hear you, Dr. Tariq. So
yes.
Yes, we hear you now.
Now you can hear me?
Absolutely. Please go ahead, Dr. Tariq.
So I don't want to ask any question. It is just my observation.
Okay.
Same observation I had made in the QS summit which you held in Goa.
Okay.
In last year. My observation is this: the ranking agencies, such as a leading ranking agency like yours, it should go by objective parameters rather than by subjective parameters, like perception. If you give too much importance to perception, then there may be some issues may come. There are many factors. If a university is situated in a small town, people don't know that town. If it is situated in a remote area, it is situated in a small state. If some university is situated in Bombay or Delhi or in some Pune, definitely that will get an advantage in the perception, because people will think it is situated in a big town, so it must be this thing. If it is situated in a small town, then people may have since they have not heard about it, it is not their fault, but they have not heard about it. So this point I had made in the QS summit which you held in Goa, and in the minister was also there, and you had all appreciated, the executives who were there of the QS ranking, that we should be more objective rather than being subjective. So this is the point which I want to make.
Ashwin, can I ask?
In today's world, so many factors are there. We are all aware of those factors.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tariq.
Ashwin, I have a quick question to Ben, if I may, if you have a minute.
Yes, please.
So Ben, I mentioned, the disturbance that was caused because research output is almost synonymous with what is being published in science, almost, if not entirely. And of course, there are ways and means to credit for the social science research. But the disturbance that was caused in publishing world, and it continues to be caused, are the agencies such as QS and Time, are you aware of the tension that has put us, a country like India, under vis-a-vis cost of publication, for example, in a journal which has a high impact factor? For example, very large number of fake and fraud journals coming out. Are these issues being considered internally by the ranking agencies? because that's a major parameter now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr.
Yeah.
Chauhan. Ben?
Okay, let me take both of those points on the nose. When it comes to the evolving landscape of publishing, we follow the debates and the discussions. We monitor it as best we can. And we respond with certain developments up to a point. We were first to exclude self-citations, for example, and we have identified a number of cases, at least one of them in India, whereby aberrant behavior regarding self-citations has led to unexpected outcomes in other rankings as a result. So we do look at those kind of things. One of the challenges that we have is that, to look at this year's analysis, we crunched the numbers on, I think it was 18.5 million publications and 138 million citations in order to compile this year's university rankings. So that takes an enormous amount of computing power, and aspects of that are beyond QS's capability. We have to rely on our partner, in this case Elsevier, to take these matters seriously. So we're in persistent dialogue with Elsevier around how content is selected for Scopus, and they come to us, and I had a conversation just a couple of months ago with their team around some of the challenges around content selection and almost more importantly, content deselection. And I was able, in the context of that conversation, to pass on some feedback I'd had directly from our stakeholders and friends in India to comment on some of the challenges. So they're mindful of these kind of things. The reality is that when you exclude self-citation, the influence of fake and fraudulent publications on the citations per faculty metric is significantly diminished, because generally those fake and fraudulent citations, once you remove self-citations from the mix, they have a more disruptive influence on productivity metrics than on citation and profiling metrics. So they have the potential to be more disruptive in the context of our regional rankings than in the context of our world rankings. So we're mindful of it, and we're working with Elsevier, and we're in constant dialogue to try and encourage them to maintain and elevate their standards. But we have an influence role rather than a control role, if you like, around those facts.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you.
To take on the other point, when it comes to reputation, this is an interesting ongoing debate. There are no objective indicators. It's a common misconception to suggest that just because something isn't gathered from a survey, it is an objective indicator, and because something is gathered from a survey, it is not. So, for example, if we look at the Shanghai ranking, one of the measures that the Shanghai ranking uses is Nobel Prize winners. It's often held up as some kind of objective indicator. However, Nobel Prize winners are decided by a committee based in Scandinavia, and when you look at the distribution of Nobel Prizes over the years by geography, much as many, if not all, of the awardees may be deserving, it doesn't look like it's an entirely objective indicator. And indeed, from a statistical perspective, it lacks depth. Only around 900 human beings have ever received a Nobel Prize, and so how much depth is that in evaluating 1,000 universities? When we look at the balance of indicators, we're applying subjective weights to each of them, and we are conducting them in as consistent a way as we can. But what we've learned over the years is that every modification to a definition that we might write is subject to differing interpretations, and ensuring that we've got the right, accurate, and consistent data is very challenging. And therefore, even the things that seem like they're directly objective have an aspect of subjectivity. Our sample sizes are very considerable now, and by all statistical measures, whilst we are still dealing with individual subjective observations, the collection of responses altogether form a rich, diverse, and objective and comparatively objective picture. Indeed, we see small institutions do better than we might expect. We see young institutions do better than we might expect, and we see remote institutions do better than we might expect. Contrary to the perception that just because you're in a rural community, you don't get recognized, or just because you're in a particular country, you don't get recognized, or just because you're a small institution, you don't get recognized. We can surface exceptions to all of those observations in our reputation data. Indeed, if you're in Mumbai, you might be more recognized because you have the name Mumbai or in your address or even in your name. But there's also a lot of competition. There are a lot of other universities that also have Mumbai in their address. And the distinctiveness of an individual location can sometimes be turned to the advantage of an institution to make them appear more distinctive and more unique in their particular outlook on the world. And we've seen institutions manifest their remote location or their boutique size or their distinctive subject mix as an aspect of their distinctive identity that has enabled them to create greater memorability than otherwise. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that surveys are the ultimate way, and if we can identify additional, objective, globally comparable metrics, then we are always on the hunt to improve our ranking. We would, in the medium term, like to reduce our emphasis on reputation measures. Currently, they stand between employers and academics at 50%. And in pursuit of better alternatives, we have been so far on a 16-year hunt for the Holy Grail. And much as there are other dimensions of university capability that rise to the surface as important, the ability to objectively measure them globally, comparably, and reliably has been a challenge that we continue to pursue and are open to specific suggestions as to what we might do in the future. It seems like we may have lost Ashwin.
Sorry, we had a moment of downtime there, so I hope this is a problem. I lost the connection. So Ben, did you make your statement already? Because we've reached the end of the program.
I did, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ben. And I would really like to thank the panel here. We would like to thank Dr. D.P. Singh, Dr. Virendra Chauhan, and the Minister, Shri Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank, for giving us this opportunity to do this event live. We will continue discussion from academics. We're going to go into students later today. So I would like to share with you all, whoever is going to join us this evening for a debate on student empowerment, on women empowerment, and we're going to look at students here. 10 kids from various universities are going to come and talk about impact of gender equality on women entrepreneurship, and this is to the lens of higher education. So join us this evening at 5 p.m. We're doing this on Facebook. So I think the discussion continues, and we are doing a lot of thought-provoking sessions. Do subscribe to our channel right now and click on the bell icon if you're on Facebook, like our page, and get notified of future updates. So amazing session. Thank you so much. We overran time, and I would really like to thank Ben for coming in so early in the morning for this session on the day of the ranking launch, and everyone, all our chief guests and our guest of honor, for making this memorable. Thank you so much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Professor John.
Thank you.